Guten Tag. Today we're going to be talking about Verben, or verbs. We've actually been using these since we started learning German, but today we're going to go more in depth and also really teach you how to do these conjugations with any verb. So, we have our regular verb ending chart here. So the good thing about German is that compared to some other languages which have multiple charts like these where we have to memorize multiple endings, German we only have one for our regular verbs. So, in this chart you see that first in red we have our German pronouns. Ich, du, er, sie, es, and so on. Okay? Then, in the white, we have our English meanings for those pronouns, so our English language pronouns. And then again in red, we have our endings, okay? So these endings and the pronouns are what are really important here. So everything in red is what is important. The white helps us memorize what these pronouns mean, but what we're really going to be using is what's in red. Now, the fastest way to really get a handle on these is to memorize these endings, which can seem like a pretty big task, but I actually have a song that helps you remember it. I learned this when I started learning German, and it really helped me to start memorizing these and incorporating these endings into my sentences. So, this is the song. It goes, Ich, I, E, du, you, st, er, he, t, sie, she, t, wir, we, en, ihr, you, all, t, sie, they, en, sie, you, en. So, you can try that to yourself, listen to me sing it badly, or memorize them in a different way if you're not a big song person. But I will tell you that even though it may seem silly, the song does help. And I just want to point out, so sie, they, that's the plural, so they are, right? So they play, they swim, whatever. And then remember, we have different forms of you. So we have du, that means you, and that we use with friends, it's informal, okay? Ihr is you all, or y'all, right? So that's when we're talking to multiple people, okay? Then we have the formal you, which is capitalized, you'll see, and that is when you're talking to someone you don't know in a more formal setting. Okay, so our song again, remember, is Ich, I, E, du, you, st, er, he, t, sie, she, t, wir, we, en, ihr, you, all, t, sie, they, en, sie, you, en. Okay? You can play that back to yourself, sing it yourself in your head, whatever helps you. Now, how do we incorporate these endings? How do we conjugate a verb? So, in German, first, we need a subject. Just like we do in English, we need a subject for our sentence. Let's take ich for this example. All right? Then, we want to put our verb next to it. So a subject and verb, they're best friends. They're always together in a German sentence. Even if they're flip-flopped, they're still together. Now, then we want to take our verb, we have it next to the subject, and we want to take off that en ending from our verb, because most regular verbs especially, are going to have an en ending. Okay, so we take that off. Now, think back to our chart, and we want to put on the ending that matches our subject. So in this case, our subject is ich. So think back to the chart, think back to the song. Ich, I, E. So we put that E on the end, and then write the rest of our sentence, okay? So your subject is going to tell you what the ending's going to be, and then you just attach that ending to the verb stem. You can think of it as putting two pieces of Legos together. Which piece matches? Or, a puzzle piece. which piece matches the verb stem. And that's what you put on. Okay? So, let's give that a shot. But first, I want you to pause the video, put this chart or this information in your notes, and you may also want to jot this down on a piece of paper so that you have it for easier access. Okay, so once again, we need a subject for our sentence. Then we put our verb right next to our subject. We take off the en ending. Then we take a look at our subject again and figure out what our verb ending is going to be. Okay, so you give it a try. I have a sentence here, but the only thing is I don't have the verb conjugated. Can you conjugate the verb for me? So, remember, the sentence we're trying to say here is, I am called Hans, or my name is Hans. Think about what the subject is. We take off the en, and tell me, what would the correct conjugation be? So remember, ich, I, e. So we take off the en and put on an e, as we see in our chart here. Okay, let's try another one. Another verb that we're familiar with. Our sentence is going to be, you live in Hamburg. So remember, take off the en, and what's the ending for do? Think through that song. Ich, I, e, do, you. And what's the ending? So it would be st. So we took off the en of our verb, and we put on the ending for do onto the verb, which is st, as we see here. Okay, let's try another one. So think back to that song. Ich, I, e, do, you, st, he, t. So we took off the en, looked at our subject, it's and if you look at your chart, the ending that we need is t. Give this one a shot. So our sentence is, she is called Gudrun. So it would be, sie heißt Gudrun. Okay? Let's try another one. So, just like we did before with do, it's the same rule, even though it's a different verb. So it's going to be, du kommst aus Kiel. We look at our subject, and we put on the correct ending. Can you do that with this sentence? So, Angela. This one was a little more difficult, but think about it. Angela, or Angela, if you were talking in English, or speaking in English, excuse me, you would replace Angela with she. So, in German, that is sie. So, ich, I, e, du, you, st, he, t, sie, she, t. So we took off our en, and we put on a t. Angela wohnt in Dresden. So again, think of it as puzzle pieces. Which puzzle piece matches Angela? And we put that on the end of the verb. Okay? So even when we're using people's names, we still apply this rule. Let's say it was a person that was Peter, we replace that with Okay, so Raina is a man, so just apply that rule to say Raina comes from Germany. Okay, so Raina kommt aus Deutschland would be your answer. Because so we took off our en and said, which ending matches Rainer, he. Oh, that's going to be T. Try this one on for size. So now we're moving on to the other side of that verb chart, to our plural side of that verb chart. So think about it. Ich, I, du, you, es, t, he, t, sie, she, t, wir, we, en. Okay, so I still say, pretend like you're taking off that en, but oh, look, the ending's still en. For wir, if you went back to your chart, or you're looking at one in your notes or on paper, you would see that it's en for the ending. Okay, now, we want to say they come from Switzerland, okay? So tell me, what would the correct ending to complete this sentence be? So if you sing through your song, or look at your chart, you'll see that they, sie, the ending is en. All right? Now I'll try this one. So you all, ihr. And we want to say you all come from the USA. Look at your chart and figure that out. Ihr kommt aus den USA. So we took off the en and we put on a T, because that's our ending for ihr. Let's go back to ich. You may not come from England, but this person that's speaking does. So it would be ich, we took off the en, ich, I, so we thought, took off the en, and what ending goes with ich? That's I. Ich komme aus England. Now, try it with du again, with this verb. So you've seen a couple examples here with du, with you, and you'll notice that even though they're different verbs, the same rule, the same ending still applies. So we took off our en and we put on an st. Du, you, st. So du, the ending for du is st. Now, Frau Wagner comes from Linz. So think of Frau Wagner. She is a woman, maybe a teacher, that you're talking about. What would the ending for kommen be? I hope you didn't overthink this one, because think about it. If you were saying this sentence in English, Frau Wagner comes from Linz, you would just say, potentially, she comes from Linz. And you can do that in German too. So, the sentence would be Frau Wagner kommt aus Linz. Okay? Wir. And what's the ending for this verb? Again, we've seen an example with wir or two in this lesson, but we know that the ending's going to be en for all regular verbs. Now, try it again with du. Same rule. So we take off our en, and then we think, what's our ending for du? It's going to be st. Okay, so if you're still struggling a little bit, that's fine. You can go back and repeat those activities, those examples. But this is something that, if you're practicing it, it's going to come eventually. Okay? So, if you do have any questions though, please let me know. Otherwise, auf Wiedersehen.